good evening, welcome. This is Hot Edition. We're live from our news up at Desawe Kanda, also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. This evening here on Hot Edition, no STC passenger died in Beremso crash. All 31 accounted for. That's according to the Deputy Managing Director of the company who has been talking. Stay with us. We've got details for you here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Also, we'll give you an update on the happenings ahead of on Thursday, where there will be a remembrance for the death 8 persons that we lost exactly a year ago. We'll tell you about that here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're keeping an eye on how things are playing out in this Tukrom STC bus crash. We understand the death toll has risen to 3. We'll give you an update on that here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. All these and more in the next 60 minutes. Your thoughts, views, comments, and opinions are welcome. Read out to you and to the rest of the world. And also the latest on the basic education certificate examination, BECE, placement, teacher recruitment, bribery. The Education Minister, Haruna Idrisu, has been talking about this here on Hot Edition. We'll get into it. And as always, with the latest in the world of sports as well. Let's head on for a summary of the news now. And Noura Mohammed is here.
Well, starting off with the summaries, the Narcotics Control Commission, NACOC, has arrested 10 students of Kufri Technical University, KTU, for allegedly producing, distributing, and selling cannabis-infused drinks and ice creams during the Students' Representative Council's Whole Week celebrations. The intelligence-led operation was carried out as part of NACOC's ongoing efforts to crack down on illicit drug trafficking. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has announced a new requirement for Ghanaians seeking employment in the United Arab Emirates, that's the UAE, following official notification from the Embassy of the UAE in Accra on updated visa conditions. Also, the Ghana North Environmental Health and Sanitation Department has commenced the demolition of toilet facilities being constructed beneath the Pokwase interchange along the Accra-Kumasi Highway. And this is despite earlier assurances by the Municipal Chief Executive, Akwete Agbo, that the project was an assembly-led initiative. Meanwhile, President John Dramani Mahama has presented the immediate past Chief of Defense of Staff, CDS General Thomas Opong Pepra, who's retired, and service commanders of the Ghana Armed Forces with a Toyota Land Cruiser following the withdrawal of armored vehicles that had previously been allocated to them as part of their retirement benefits. And finally, Parliament last Friday adjourned senior DI, that is without official resumption date, bringing the second meeting of the second session of the 9th Parliament to a close without reconsidering the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill 2026, that is an anti-LGBTQ bill. The Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, had assured the National Chief Imam Osman Nuhu Shaributu last Thursday that Parliament would revisit and pass the bill before adjournment. That's it for the news summaries. Back to you, Alfred.
Thank you so much, Noura Mohammed. There's more news you can find on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Hot Edition. We're going to be joined by Adam Senanu, who is the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Adam Senanu is going to be joining us on the telephone shortly. There's a new governance data released by the Ghana Statistical Service, says public officials demanded unofficial payments from nearly 7 in every 10 Ghanaians to encounter some form of bribery situations in the second half of 2025. The survey found that money remained the most common form of gifts, accounting for more than 3/4 of all gifts given to public officials. Now, while exchanges involving favors increased, gifts in the form of food drinks or animals declined. Men were also found to be more likely than women to give gifts to public officials. Now, if you go on our Facebook page at 3FM927, we're showing you some graphical representation of what I've just mentioned regarding the Ghana Statistical Service, the latest data on corruption. They also reported a general decline in gift taking across all public institutions in 2025. A trend, it says, could reflect ongoing efforts to strengthen transparency, accountability, and integrity in public service delivery. And that's the latest from the new governance data released by the Ghana Statistical Service, saying that public officials demanded unofficial payment, we call it bribe, from nearly 7 in every 10 persons that they encounter. And that's what's become a great sense of worry and concern based on what the Ghana Statistical Service has just put out. And it's one that we're looking at it quite closely as well, sinking our teeth into right now to find out exactly how this can be addressed. But this is the latest from the Ghana Statistical Service. This survey also found that the proportion of Ghanaians who paid a bribe increased from 14.3% in the first half of 2025 to 18% in the second half, meaning about 1 in 6 people paid a bribe to a public official during that particular period. So that's one that we're going to quite closely here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We'll get to an anti-corruption crusader to get some details on what they make of this one coming through right now. But the Ghana Statistical Service has uncovered pervasive corruption in the conduct of business in the public sector. False evidence, the marking scheme is what they reference. The schools say it is skewed deliberately to favor candidates from public schools. Now we're going to show you this particular reason, the point that these private schools are making. If you go on our Facebook page at 3FM927, we'll show you exactly why they say the marking scheme is skewed. BECE. Speaking on the matter, the executive director of the Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asare, says the agencies involved must resolve the matter with urgency.
Or external assessments, and in this case, BECE is credible, not just based on the existence of a marking scheme or a marking system, but also the existence of significant public trust.
You know this my job, right? I forgot to interview.
So anytime you have candidates sit for examination and express misgivings about examination, those are not necessarily strange. In the UK, for instance, a couple of weeks ago, about 20,000 people who wrote the A-level paper went on demonstration. That the paper was difficult, and it caused some investigation to be done whether the stress level of examination was consistent with what it ought to be. And so they petitioned the regulatory body. Over here, we don't have a regulatory body. I'll continue to say that when you have mechanisms that provide assurance and comfort to citizens that whenever they feel aggrieved, they are likely to get a fair hearing, it boosts confidence in the assessment system. Whether it's the grading system, whether it's a marking scheme, whatever the nature of one's issue with the results may be, we believe that the mechanisms that handle such disputes must inspire and assure citizens that they are likely to receive a fair outcome or a fair hearing. In the past, people have gone to church, some have gone to court. But you and I appreciate fully how long it takes to settle such matters in court. There are many people I know who went to Shraj who had pronouncement by Shraj on cases that they felt unfairly treated at work.
Right.
By the time my pronouncement were out, special admissions had been concluded, and this was worse. And so our administrative bodies and our courts, have very, very lengthy processes that do not necessarily provide justice. And that's why it's important that stakeholders emphasize the need for the Ministry of Education to establish an independent regulator for all assessment bodies. If you have issues, petition the assessment body, the body will conduct an impartial and independent investigation and pronounce.
Well, so that's Kofi Asare, Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch. Now, let's speak with Obenfo Enoch Nana Jetua, who leads this Association of Private Schools. They are raising questions about this BECE results released just a few days ago. They say that it is skewed, the marking scheme is skewed towards favoring students in the public schools. Why is that, Mr. Jetua? Hello, Mr. Jetua, can you hear us?
Yes, please, I can hear you.
Why are you saying that the marking scheme is skewed towards favoring students in the public schools against that of students in the private schools?
Our position has been very clear, Alfred, is that the academic results which was released as a reflection of the private schools candidates who took part in the recent BECE, does not reflect their academic performance or that we know. And our assertion is grounded on the fact that we have been with these students over the years, and we have assessed them. We have taken them through all the regiments that we need to take them through, and they have written sample of our assessment equivalent to the WASI, which they have BECE, which they have passed. And so, when such results are being released to us, and we are not previewed to the script that has been marked, then we have the justifiable grounds to say that the result does not reflect, because it has a lot of discrepancies based on the records that we have. So that is our position.
I see, but have you petitioned the West African Examination Council, the Ministry of Education, on this matter?
As I speak to you now, we know the results was released last Friday, and we were collating data. The petition is ready, and we are petitioning the Ministry of Education because we see that Waye cannot be a footballer and a referee and a coach at the same time. And so we need an independent body, and we all work under the Ministry of Education. So our petition is ready. Will be submitted latest by Friday to the Ministry of Education for a proper constituted independent body to be constituted so that they can review the case which we have put them together for a conclusive decision to be made.
I see. And any specific timelines to this? Did the ministry give you any specific timelines to when they intend to resolve this matter?
Well, as for the ministry, they are yet to receive our petition, so they have not been able to communicate to us. But what I can speak on authority is that Parliamentary Select Committee on Education has taken a key interest in this matter, and they have called us to a meeting within this week, possibly by Thursday, and which I believe that WAEC will also be there. And so if you talk about specificity of time, what I can say is that within this week, we have two major activities to do: to meet the Ministry of Education by submitting the petition, and also to have a crunch meeting with the Parliamentary Select Committee on Education together with WAEC. And I believe that this should rather be interested WAEC, because it is high time we call WAEC for accountability. And so if you are working within the public space and it is time for accountability, I think you have to be available for that. And I believe WAEC will be available for that, to come and meet some of our evidences that we have put together, which are very, very strong enough in terms of its admissibility.
Okay, but then Kofi Asare, who spoke before you just joined us, was of the view that instead of rather coming out publicly with these concerns, rather contact the ministry let them know, petition them even before you come out publicly with the concerns, because you put the cart before the horse. You're coming out publicly to complain. I'm coming. You put out the issues. No, Mr. Tua, hold on, let me finish. You put out the issues before now going to seek a solution from the ministry. Why is that?
Alfred, I disagree with Kofi on that. There's no procedural framework for anyone, for an aggrieved person to follow. If there's any procedural framework for an aggrieved person at the Ministry of Education to follow, we would have followed that. And there are many times, civil society organizations like Kofi Asare and co. do have concerns, raise it, and proceed to petition. There was this example where this a teacher actively abused a learner. Asare and his team came out with, their position. Everybody was aware before they proceeded to petition National Teaching Council to set a committee to review it. And that is what I'm saying, that in terms of resolving issues, there could have been a specific, procedure to follow. And that there hasn't been any specific procedure to follow, which we have breached it. And so the route that we have taken in our concern, we believe it is absolutely right. We need to, cry for everybody to know what we are facing so that the gravity of the issue might be felt. It is true that even Parliamentary Select on Education held the matter and they are calling for a meeting.
Right.
And so, in as much as we welcome his idea, I don't believe that this is anything that we have procedurally gone wrong in terms of making our case known to the public and call the minister for his attention.
Obenfo Enokanana Jetua, thank you for joining us. We'll wait for Thursday. You say there's going to be a meeting on Thursday. We'll wait for the outcome of that meeting to also inform our listeners on it. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. He is the National Executive Director of the Ghana National Association of the Private Schools, who are raising concerns. In fact, they at the disadvantage of to the disadvantage of students in private schools. And that's what we were trying to understand on what basis they are making this claim. They say that they have enough evidence to that effect. They're going to petition the Ministry of Education. We'll see how on Thursday that said meeting would play out. But here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesmi 107.1, in Tamale on W93.5 in Wild Beyond. And as I did indicate earlier, requests for unofficial payments to access public services in Ghana rose sharply in the second half of 2025, with nearly 7 in 10 citizens who encountered bribery reporting that public officials demanded extra payment, according to new governance data released by the Ghana Statistical Service. Now, the survey also found that the proportion of Ghanaians who paid a bribe increased from 14.3% in the first half of 2025 to 18% in the second half, meaning about 1 in 6 people paid a bribe to a public official during that period. The Government Association, Dr. Al-Hassan Idris, speaking at the Governance Series event organized by 3 Reports and the Ghana Statistical Service earlier today, said the findings show conditions worsened over the last 6 months of 2025, even though the country's overall performance for the year improved compared to 2024. Adam Senano is the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, is the chairperson of the African Union, that's the governance group, on advisory group on anti-corruption. Is joining us. Mr. Zano, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you for joining us here on Hot Edition. First off, listening to the details of this report, that 7 in 10 citizens surveyed by the Ghana Statistical Survey, that's the Ghana Statistical Service, did indicate that they paid bribes to public officials to access one public good or the other. How does this strike you?
Well, it tells you there's an erosion in the ethical conduct of our public officers on one hand, and on the other hand, it also tells me that about their right under the law and the services that they are supposed to enjoy. if they feel compelled to make those bribes to be able to access those services. I think that properly called, this is extortion. So in the anti-corruption parlance, when a public officer is demanding, that's extortion. So even though the report says they paid a bribe, you see that the underlying factor was that this was demanded. So to that extent, there was extortion. So our public code of conduct, public ethics, and the enforcement of same, because in the public service terrain, ideally, when you walk in, you should see the requisite rate for services publicly, outlined, highlighted. There should be something that says that if you pay more than this, call this number. How we enforce the services and how they are delivered is something that we should be looking at. So bottom line, there's an erosion in ethical conduct by our public officers. On the other hand, we need to do much more education on the rights and the privileges of citizens so that they don't feel compelled to make these kind of payments.
A very important point. But then the Ghana Scout Service also draws a certain nexus between the demand for bribe and then also the conditions under which the persons or the public officials who demanded the bribes work. So, for instance, the government statistician, Dr. Al-Hassan Idris, said the findings show conditions of service actually worsened over the last 6 months of 2025, even though the country's overall performance for the year improved compared to 2024. I mean, do you also, make sense of this connection between the conditions that these public officials who demanded bribes work and then also their demand for the bribes of further payments from people?
Well, I mean, research is a very exciting thing. I mean, I started out in research. So if the government statistician is saying that, look, we took the data on the conditions of public servants, etc., and we did a correlation. So you run a regression. And the regression gives you, a certain figure. You're able to tell that there is a direct linkage. So it is not because they are just doing a surface level analysis. The regression model is telling you there is a relationship. Once they say that, then that is categoric. So it's saying that, look, the economic situations were such that the public officers had to pay more, whether it was fuel that then translated into the cost of the prices of goods and services. And as that increased, as it worsened, they were compelled to try and deal with the shortfall between their monthly salaries and what they are having to pay for what they have to cater for their families. And so that may have influenced the demands that lead to the extortion. And if it's a scientific fact, then clearly it's something that all of us must take seriously.
How would you want the outcome of this research to be implemented? Or how would you expect that it influences the policies implemented to ensure that there's less or least corruption in the public sector when it comes to the members general public, accessing public good?
Alfred, this is probably one of the most fantastic questions I've had in a very long time. I've always felt that as a society, we fail to understand how we can pick scientific work, research, and intentionally, strategically apply it to the lives of our people to improve what they are going through. And I'll look at this and say that rather than it be a one-off, we should have, in terms of our structures, institutional structures, a system that ensures that perhaps quarterly, at the highest level of each of these public organs, you are looking out for any data, research that has been done, and factoring what it means into your design for the work plan for the next quarter, for the next 6 months, for the next 1 year. And to that extent, therefore, the GSS has published something. It shows a correlation. The question is, who is responsible for the conditions of service of public actors? Is it the Public Services Commission? Somebody at that level, there should be, and it should be something that becomes public policy. You need to demonstrate that every quarter, or at least worst case scenario, every 6 months, as part of the agenda of whether it is the board of the commission, whether it is the minister, that recent data that has been collected is factored into decision making. So that then we then say, look, we realize this has happened. Does it mean we adjust salaries up? Does it mean that we need to look at, does government decide to subsidize the services? Something must give way once you can identify such a correlation to make sure that, because that's what the public service exists. It's to serve the public. It is to make things easier for them. So to the extent that that is the intention, we then need to have decisions that allow citizens to be able to access their services, public officers to be able to deliver without necessarily, having to struggle and suffer at the cost of providing these services, etc.
Right on. And maybe, Mensano, quickly, before I let you go, when this news of the Accra High Court granting an application by the Economic and Organized Crime Office to freeze the 5 bank accounts and 4 landed properties belonging to the former Executive Secretary of the Interministerial Committee, Coordinating Committee on Decentralization, Dennis Miracles Abuaje, there's been the reaction from the MPP today that all of this it's just for the politics, and then also the fact that it's diversionary because everything that's happening in this country right now, and getting to know what Yoko has done, and from the anti-corruption perspective, has this been carried out in a way that falls within that bracket of it just being the politics of things from where you sit?
Absolutely not. And I'll keep saying that the political parties should stop imputing partisan motives to systems and processes that are supposed to deliver accountability in this nation. Look, part of where this case is, I believe, is simply because, don't forget that under financial intelligence, whatnot, if you have an account and certain transfers and things are happening and it's crossing certain thresholds, it will trigger certain reactions. So if there's a certain sense that people are not collaborating, they are trying to suggest that it is rather just partisan, when there's clear evidence that there are issues to be dealt with, you will begin to have additional actions being taken to ensure that certain people cannot leave the jurisdiction. So they should be very careful when you are dealing with the intelligence, I don't know what word to use, group. They are keeping their ears on the ground. There's data to show that IMCC lost money. There's data to show that money was utilized or siphoned off. There are people who have to answer questions. They either answer the questions and collaborate, or else you're going to get situations where certain actions will be taken so that the money will not disappear. Mind you, all of this is being done within the historical context of what has happened in this country. We've had cases where when people gave space, all of a sudden the money dissipated or disappeared, or when people were allowed, assuming they were going for whichever medical or not, they didn't come back. But there's a context within which these decisions are being taken. And the political parties should stop trying to, unnecessarily politicize and polarize the work of investigation and prosecution. Allow these things to continue. And persons, if he has the money and he can negotiate or plea bargain, he should do that. If he doesn't have it, he will face the full rigors of the law. And let's not try to throw dust in the eyes of the citizen.
I see. And maybe quickly, before I let you go, is this just... one will say a thief is one who has been caught, right? If you are not caught, you will probably never be accused of stealing. Okay, so beyond just persons being, arrested, questioned of allegations of acts of corruption, would you support those who say that there must be a law in place to check, for instance, the lifestyle of public officers living beyond their means, like a lifestyle audit, so that even before they leave office and then we get to see the full length of the frog, we would at least have some action?
Absolutely. Those are part of the pieces of legal or legislation missing. We call it illicit enrichment. We need an illicit enrichment law where it allows you to do lifestyle audits where it's like, how did you earn, with a reverse burden of proof. So it's not like what we have now where the state is the one trying to indicate that, look, you have money you're not supposed to have, and you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt. But reserve burden of proof, which means that you need to indicate, you need to justify, you need to go to validate how you receive the sources of funds that you have in your account and how you're able to get the access, etc. And if you're not, then it will be assumed that those monies, those assets were illicitly gained, and therefore it will be confiscated by the state. So we do need illicit enrichment, and we need a reverse burden of proof. Those are major things that we need in place, in addition to the conduct of public officers law being passed, so that there's categorically in law sanctions. Because what it is now is that we just shift people around. They commit a crime, you move them to another office, and so forth, because the sanctions are not clear. But if we have a law with the sanctions, then and stiff sanctions at that, then we will begin to make some inroads in dealing with this canker, which is increasing across the country.
And I do thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you, Alfred.
Adam Senano is the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption and the chairperson of the Africa Union Advisory Committee on Anti-Corruption as well there. This is Hot Edition, 28 minutes at the top of the hour. We're also live on KESME 107.1 in Tamale and on W93.5 in Y and Beyond. We're receiving some breaking news coming through right now here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7.
Breaking news on 3FM 92.7.
Prestia, Hone Valley community, as attempt to kill a snake triggers devastating blast that we have just experienced. If you go on our Facebook page right now, 3FM 927, we've just received some videos and pictures of a dynamite explosion in the community of Aboso, located in the Prestia Hone Valley municipality of the Western region, which has claimed the lives of 4 people and left many others with serious injuries, according to the authorities in the municipality. According to the Kotiase Assembly member speaking to the 3FM 92.7, the tragic event or incident unfolded earlier this afternoon when residents encountered a large snake that had been terrorizing the area, the residents there for some time now. The assembly member for the Kotiase electoral area, Emmanuel Eshan, provided details of the sequence of events. The first person to spot the snake alerted a nearby shop owner and fired a warning shot in an attempt to scare the reptile away. However, the situation escalated when the shop's security personnel decided to take direct action and shoot at the snake. Tragically, the bullet struck a stock of explosive material being sold at a shop in the vicinity, triggering a massive explosion. The assembly member confirmed that 3 people have been confirmed dead instantly at the scene, including the shop owner, identified as Kofi Fletcher. A 4th victim, who sustained severe injuries, later succumbed while being transported to a nearby health facility, bringing the death toll to 4. Several other individuals sustained serious injuries and are currently receiving medical treatment as we speak. The authorities have not yet released an official statement of all those affected. If you go on our Facebook page right now at 3FM 927, we're showing you this explosion site as a result of an attempt by residents in this particular area, which is the Prestia Hone Valley community, specifically that is Aboso in the Prestia Hone Valley municipality in the Western region. This explosion that occurred as a result of they wanting to kill a snake that has been terrorizing them in the area. Quite unfortunate. It's led to the death of 4 people. In the area. If you go on our Facebook page right now at 3FM 927, we're showing you the videos of this explosion we have just received right now from that's our correspondent Ebenezer Timo in the community. This happened just few minutes ago. Alex Kinate ADO1 is with the Ghana National Fire Service Public Affairs Department. Mr. Nate, good evening.
Good evening, Alfred.
I know that you probably you're yet to get this information, but This is what we are hearing from the Presiahone Valley. Have you received any call as yet?
No, the only information I received from Presiahone Valley today, that was even sent to me by your own sister, Portia, was a fire incident involving an organizing shop and a steel bending shop, which our officers from Bugoso promptly attended to it and extinguished the fire. That is the only update I know from Presiahone Valley, but I'll do well to follow up on this developing story.
Rightly so. But the reason why we called you, we understand the death toll from the fatal road crash involving the STC bus, fuel tanker, Mitsubishi pickup, and a Kia Sorento at Etukrom near Bonso Junction, the AC region, has risen to 3. Are you able to confirm this for us and exactly what happened?
So yes, unfortunately, I can confirm that one of the victims who was, or one of the casualties who was rushed to the hospital, who was at yesterday, was receiving treatment, and we were hoping and praying that they would have recovered. Unfortunately, one of them succumbed to their injuries and died, which is a young girl who was involved in the accident.
That's a sad one. But how about those others who sustained the degrees of injury as well and are receiving treatment? How are they doing as we speak?
So they're all so far doing very well. You know, the injuries varied. We had some who were in very critical condition. That's how come we happened to put out the 7 casualties out there, because they were the most critical. Other people have sustained injuries, and those whose injuries weren't too critical have been treated, and some of them have been discharged. But then, the unfortunate news is one of these critical people, who we believe was in the vehicle with her father in the Sorrento, as you could have seen, that the vehicle was totally mangled. Fortunately, she was a fighter. She survived at the scene of the accident, but succumbed at the hospital.
Sad one there. But the STC Deputy Managing Director has also been speaking, indicating that all 31 passengers in the STC bus have been accounted for. No deaths were recorded among the passengers on that bus. But then again, there's some injuries that they sustained as well. Is this consistent with what you do know?
Exactly. If you remember, I spoke to you yesterday, and I confirmed this, contrary to what their driver had said, and rightfully. And so I guess what I said has been confirmed by the managing director, that truly the passengers in the STC were all accounted for. And so it was a bit troubling that their driver had caused such fear and panic. And so the death toll, but for the little girl who succumbed today, the death toll would have remained at 2, which would have been the tanker driver and his mates. But now, as part of the passengers or the occupants in the mangled vehicle, the little girl had succumbed and making the death toll 3, but none from the STC.
I see. And also, has traffic been opened as we speak, as after the place was cordoned off and the traffic diverted by the police information yesterday, from what you do know?
Yes. So as I late yesterday night, the traffic was opened. We, as a service, successfully finished all the roles that we had to play. All the roles that we had to play, as I mentioned earlier, 1 was to put out the fire, 2 was to rescue people who were trapped, 3 was to retrieve bodies of people who had unfortunately passed away in the fire, and 4 was to wash away the debris as a result of the accident, which we did all that. And so in our job or our mandate, we had cleared the debris, and it's per our estimation, it was safe, free from any debris that could cause any public health danger to pedestrians or road users.
Ediwana Leskinate, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you.
My pleasure, bro.
Ediwana Leskinate is a member of the Ghana National Fire Service Public Affairs Department there on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also getting information right now, what we just put out earlier. If you go on our Facebook page at 3FM 927, this incident that happened just a few minutes ago at Prestia, Hone Valley. This is specifically the Aboso area. Unfortunately, a dynamite explosion in the community of Aboso, located in the Prestia Hone Valley municipality of the Western Region, has claimed the lives of 4 people, left many others with serious injuries. Authorities have confirmed that this was as a result of the community members on their own seeking to kill a snake that has been terrorizing them in the area. That led to an explosion after a gun was fired into a community, that's this particular area, where there's some highly explosive materials were stored as we speak. And it's quite unfortunate, a development. If you go on our Facebook page right now at 3FM 927, we're showing you the explosion site. And this happened just a few minutes ago. And so this information just coming through right now. The Ghana National Fire Service has been duly informed. As you just heard, Alex Kenate, they are going to attend to the situation, this explosion, as we speak, at the Prestia Hone Valley Municipality. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Information we're also getting right now is that the Ghana Police Service has launched investigations into the deaths of 2 women whose bodies were discovered in a hotel room in Tamale, with the Inspector General of Police deploying a special team to support the probe. According to a press release issued by the Northern Regional Police Command earlier today, the bodies were found in a room at Cab Hospitality Hotel in the Bewa residential area of Tamale on Monday, August 3. Police say they responded to the scene after receiving a report from the hotel management and found the bodies of the 2 women who are believed to be nationals of Benin. The bodies have since been conveyed to the Tamale Teaching Hospital mortuary, where they will undergo preservation and a post-mortem examination to establish the exact cause of death. The police say preliminary investigations are underway to determine the circumstances surrounding the death, establish the identities of the deceased, and liaise with the relevant authorities to facilitate the contact with their families. To strengthen the investigation, the IGP has deployed a special team comprising investigators, intelligence officers, and crime scene personnel from the National Police Headquarters to assist the Northern Regional Police Command in uncovering persons who are behind this heinous crime. So that's what's happened, according to the police statement here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. Your thoughts, views, comments, and opinions are welcome. And read out to you and to the rest of the world. Keep your thoughts coming through. We're going to go for this quick break. When we are back, we'll settle for the latest in the world of
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on TFM 92.7. My name is Oriku Ampofo. Let's start off here from Ghana, where Heart of Oak legend Mohamed Polo has praised goalkeeper Benjamin Asare for his exploits at the 2026 World Cup while urging the shotstopper to seek a fresh start away from the local scene. Polo made his assessment during the Broom Annes Legend dinner ceremony.
Yeah, I think he has spoken for, the local, players in the system that if you work very hard, you have, a lot of opportunity. And we saw what happened, even though he was not the number one, but something happened, and he has to come and show what is made of. And so I think, God has spoken. Is growing. So he needs to, look for a better life for his future. As usual, if he goes, there is nothing wrong with that because he has served, the best that he can. That is why he has got this chance, and this opportunity should not be he should not let it go.
Well, that was Mohamed Polo speaking. Elsewhere, Burkina Faso face South Africa with confidence as they eye a spot in the knockout round of the ongoing 2026 Women's Africa Cup of Nations. Buoyed by their first victory in the history of the tournament, Burkina are flying high on confidence. A win or even a draw would be enough to punch their ticket to the quarterfinals. On the other side, South Africa, champions in 2022, have only collected 1 point from 2 matches and are fighting for survival in the tournament. Meanwhile, Tanzania and Ivory Coast have their WAFCON destiny in their own hands. Victory will send either side into the last 8, though Tanzania will finish as group winners only if Burkina Faso fail to beat South Africa. Now, in other news, Bubista has resigned from his post as Cape Verde head coach to join Moroccan side RS Berkane. The 56-year-old guided the island nation to the last 32 of the World Cup last month, where the Blue Sharks were beaten 3-2 by eventual runners-up Argentina. After extra time, Bubista also reached the quarterfinals of the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations, with Cape Verde having taken charge of the side in January 2020. The Cape Verdean has signed a 2-year deal with RS Berkane, who finished second in the Moroccan top flight last season, and replaces Mouane Shabani, who has been appointed as Tunisia's new head coach. The team from northeast of the kingdom are not traditionally seen as one of Morocco's big sides, yet, however, they've enjoyed recent success. Now, before we go, Hervé Renard has been appointed as the head coach for Ivory Coast for a second time, almost a decade after leading the country to Africa Cup of Nations glory. The 57-year-old Frenchman replaces MS Faye, who has left the role despite guiding the Elephants to the 2024 Africa Cup of Nations title. His first assignment will be a potentially significant meeting with Ghana in September when Ivory Coast begin their qualifying campaign for the continental tournament. The 2027 Africa Cup of Nations finals would be jointly hosted by Kenya, Tanzania, and then Uganda. That's how we wrap up the sports segment here on Hot Edition. My name is Oreku Ampofo, and Bismarck is standing by with business.
The Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Esiama, has directed banks to tighten credit assessment for distressed businesses, insisting that only commercially viable firms with credible restructuring plans should qualify for post-commencement financing under Ghana's insolvency law. He says while the banking sector is now stronger, lenders must reduce their non-performing loan ratio from 16.1% to more than 10% to not more than 10% by the end of December 2026, warning that business rescue should never be reduced to console bad loans or weaken prudential standards aimed at protecting depositors and maintaining financial stability.
The banking sector is in a much stronger position currently. The industry's non-performing loans ratio, and if I can give you some figures, this declined to 16.1% as at end June this year, compared to over 23% a year ago, while the capital adequacy ratio stood at 20.4%. Capital of that order is what gives a bank the room to take considered risks. But that is progress and not sufficiency. And 16.1% remains too high, even if it is fully provisioned. Our regulatory measures require each regulated institution to reduce its ratio to no more than 10% by the end of December this year.
And that was Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Isiaman. Meanwhile, the President of the Chartered Institute of Restructuring and Insolvency Practitioners, CIRIP, Felix Adu, is calling for establishment of dedicated bankruptcy courts to fast-track corporate restructuring and insolvency cases. He says specialized courts would speed up business rescue processes, improve business confidence among lenders and investors, and ensure financially distressed but viable businesses are given a timely opportunity to recover rather than collapse under prolonged legal proceedings.
Who understand the serum and know the proceedings and are current with what is happening in the business environment relating to bankruptcy issues. The Office of the Registrar of Companies and IFC have been training or offering various kinds of training to our judges to bring them up to speed on what we are trying to accomplish. The organization had its birth during my days at PwC, and PwC supported us, it housed us, and today, 20 years later, we've now become a chartered institute.
And that was President of the Chartered Institute of Restructuring and Insolvency Practitioners, CIRIP, Felix Adu. And that brings us to the end of the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck Ausa. For more business stories, please check out our website, 3news.com. Thanks for your company.
Thank you, Bismarck, with the latest in the world of sports. You're so live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also on Kesmi 107.1 and on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. Let's go on to the telephone right now, and the breaking news we brought to you about the death of some 4 persons in the Prestia Honey Valley area, Abosso specifically. There's explosion, the dynamite explosion that has claimed 4 lives as a result of this incident that occurred involving some of the residents in their hole who were attempting to kill a snake that has been terrorizing them in the area. Unfortunately, this led to the death of some 4 residents in that particular area. Shortly, we'll be connecting with some of the community leaders and then also our correspondent in the area to give us an update on what is happening there as we speak here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesmi 107.1, in Tamale and on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. Let's go on to the telephone now. Rama Smith is our correspondent in the area, who's been to this community, getting an update on this development as well. And if you go on our Facebook page at 3FM 927, we're showing you this explosion site. And Rama, what more do we know about this incident that has led to the death of 4 people in Abosso in Prestia Honey Valley?
Right. So, outside the information that we are taking, according to the assemblyman for the area, is that there's this reptile, a big snake, very, very huge, that has been terrorizing the community. It hasn't attacked anybody yet, but it's so huge that it's really scary, and people just spot it and then raise the alarm and run away. So it was this afternoon that one person saw it like really out in the open and raised the alarm that the python or the big snake was quite close by. So he gave a warning shot and called others to witness what he was seeing. So another person, a security man at one of the shops, raised the gun and also attempted to shoot the big snake, but this rather went to strike the ammunition in another shop, and that is what triggered the fire. So when this happened, 3 people died and some injured were being conveyed to the hospital. Unfortunately, one other succumbed to it. And so for now, what we know is that 4 people are dead. Several others are in the hospital receiving treatment. We don't know the number yet. And we also know that one of the shop owner who died is also the senior brother of the assemblyman. For now, everybody's so busy and hush-hush. We're not getting much information, but the community is in mourning and people are really disturbed about the whole scenario, especially because the snake itself, they are not sure the snake died. So that is what is happening now.
Sad one there. And Irama, thank you for this update. And I know you are keeping an eye on this particular one as well. So we'll be connecting with you and when we get some more information. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Irama Smith is our Western Bureau Chief, giving us updates there on this unfortunate incident that's led to the death of 4 people in Abosso in Presiahone Valley area. The sight of a snake that has been terrorizing them in the area led to an explosion when the residents sought to kill the snake, but unfortunately they shot into a room full of explosives. Before we go, the President, John Dramani Mahama, and also the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces has fulfilled his pledge to the immediate past Chief of Defense Staff, General Thomas Opompepra, retired, and service commanders of the Ghana Armed Forces by presenting each of them with a Toyota Land Cruiser following the withdrawal of armored vehicles that had previously been allocated to them as part of their retirement benefits. The vehicles were officially handed over by the Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General William Ejapong, on behalf of the President at the General Headquarters in Accra, Friday, 31st July. The donation fulfills a commitment made by the President to compensate the retired military leaders after the earlier withdrawal of their armored vehicles they had received as ex gratia. The gesture underscores the government's commitment to recognizing the dedicated service and sacrifice of former commanders of the Ghana Armed Forces. Addressing the retired service commanders, Lieutenant General Ejapong expressed appreciation for their invaluable contributions to national security and the growth of the Ghana Armed Forces. He also briefed them on ongoing infrastructure projects, welfare interventions, and other strategic initiatives currently being implemented to modernize and strengthen the Ghana Armed Forces. You can find more of this on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. On behalf of the rest of the team, thank you for staying with us here on Hot Edition. The drive continues. I am Alfred Akanse. Join me at 10 p.m. on TV3 for Ghana Tonight. On behalf of Rosalind, Taufik, Sixtus, have a good evening.